Hello there, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the podcast. Right, so we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about, firstly, we are going to talk about the super app. I don't know. Well, the super app, the fight for supremacy in super apps, right? And then, secondly, we're going to be talking about will driverless taxis be a success in London? So, with regard to the first one, so with regard to super apps, so there was a lot of news flow this week about ChatGPT and the increased functionality. So it's been talking to retailers. I think Walmart was one of them. Talking about how you can buy stuff from within ChatGPT itself. And I think that is, that seems to me to be the way forward. There was another interesting article in the FT about, shopping within within ChatGPT as well. Got very excited about it. And it just got me thinking, because obviously this is, so you've got ChatGPT as being, the subject for this week. But of course, Elon Musk has said in the past that he wants to, he has wanted to do a super app for ages. He is a long time admirer of WeChat. WeChat is in China, so it's basically WeChat and Alipay are the super apps that are in China, where you can do everything from within them, and payments and all sorts of things like that. You can run your life, kind of from within these apps. Elon Musk has always always admired that from afar. He said from ages ago that that's what he wants to do. I mean, I don't know how long Sam Altman has wanted to do it, but he now is clearly not only wanting to do it, but moving towards doing it as well. Now, traditionally, the reason why I suppose the most common reason why we don't do it is because there are concerns about apps having access to data on you. So in China, for instance, there's not so much of a concern on that. And I think that consumers probably, certainly now, I would have thought they value the convenience factor more than they do the privacy factor, because maybe they think, well, I mean, my data's out there anyway, so I might as well enjoy myself. But anyway, that is traditionally been much more difficult to do in the West. That's why we don't have any super apps. That's why we have lots of different apps, and they're not, they don't sort of talk to each other. So anyway, for what it's worth, I mean, I think that we are moving towards super app territory. I think that the advancement within AI is very interesting. This functionality within AI is very interesting, and it will make for a more efficient life. I mean, the other day I just put in there like. I'm going to have a dinner party for 12. I'm not, by the way, but I'm going to have a dinner party for 12 people. I want to have an Asian theme. Please give me recipes and suggestions as for the menu. Boom. Straight away, comes up with loads of stuff. And, I just thought it was really interesting. And I thought, well, if you then add on that, please, can you do a shopping list? Then it makes it even easier. Actually, then you sort of think, well, do I need cookbooks and stuff anymore? That kind of thing. So anyway, I just feel that it's very interesting to hear about ChatGPT, the increased functionality, but also the move towards super apps. I personally think that it may be that we're going to see XAI versus OpenAI. That's, to me, is going to be the next Apple versus Microsoft, for instance. Mm-hmm. What do you think of all that, Ralph?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if you step back from the actual people who might be offering this service and just focus on the benefit of the service itself, then I think everybody would readily agree that in order to manage your private life, the sort of demands of everyday life, would we not all love to have a competent admin assistant sitting next to us all the time, who I could basically shout at and say, "Oi, organize me a holiday," or well, okay, go to the supermarket, fine, that's the next step, but do me a price comparison. Where would I get the best and cheapest PC or something? Where is a good restaurant to take my friend to within a mile radius of where I am now? Please don't exceed 50 quid for both of us as a cost. Give me a list. This sort of thing, and these sort of demands of everyday life, not necessarily onerous things, also fun things like going to a restaurant, but it still needs to be organized. And
Yeah.
all of us have jobs. Well, I haven't got one, certainly not paid one. Anyway, I don't want to start that again. But when oh, yes. Peter knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, guys, back to serious commentary. Everybody has jobs, and we are absorbed by the jobs. We do it certainly 8 hours a day, sometimes longer. And during the time that we do the job, we are unlikely to be very efficient in organizing the sort of stuff which we also need to do, which is going to the supermarket, shopping at the supermarket, or even organizing fun things, booking a cinema ticket, booking a restaurant, finding the right restaurant, things like that. And would we not all want an assistant, a competent assistant to help us with that? So I think the use case in general is, of course, absolutely there. With the improvement of AI capability, I think it is now within our grasp to have that. But before I talk about that, let's just rewind the clock. Not for a long time, just about a year, probably 2 years ago, when Elon Musk bought Twitter. At the time, people were unclear why he actually wanted that. And at that time, speculation sprang up that he wanted to transform Twitter into just exactly what you just mentioned, this sort of super app or the everything app, which Elon Musk had seen in operation in China, where I think Elon Musk referred to WeChat as the potential model for such a functionality. And so that I remember us talking about it on this program, and we were both enamored by the idea, but neither of us could quite make that work within Twitter. And I think we have now moved on to a stage where the technology or the platform on which this would be implementable very intuitively has been reached, and that is an app on your phone or wherever, on your PC, on your phone, on your device, which runs an LLM, ChatGPT, Grok, or XAI in Elon's case, and which has now advanced to a level of operational capability that it is able to branch into external internet-based applications. In the early days of ChatGPT, this is GPT, I think 3.0, these were starting to emerge. They were called plugins at the time. You had like a Wolfram Alpha plugin if you wanted to calculate something or do some maths. You had some other plugins. That has not actually stood the test of time. But what we now have will, I think, stand the test of time. Because what we now have, or what we are beginning to develop, when I say we, that basically means Sam Altman at OpenAI for the moment, but I think Elon is not that far behind, is a functionality where within the chat which you have with the LLM, you have functionality that would enable you to, for example, book part of what you're talking about. For example, you ask, where can I see whatever the new movie with starring X in London? Which cinemas are there? Find me the least expensive one on Thursday next week, and then it comes down as a list with an option to book it for you. And this we need to pause on this just for one moment, because I think the booking for you feature, that is a step up in terms of functionality, because that is an agency system. ChatGPT in itself is not an agency system. That just allows you to ask a question, and then it will go away and look at websites and all sorts of things. We know how it works. And then basically maybe put a dossier together for you if it's advanced, or just answer a question or write you an essay, whatever you want. To that sort of functionality, we have now actually all become accustomed, which is remarkable in itself, given that it's only been available for like a year or maybe two at most. But the next step up from that is an agency system, which basically you give over a mandate to the agent and say to the agent, book me a cinema ticket. For that to actually work, the agency AI needs to have access to your account. So to some extent, alarm bells start ringing now, because there is personal information which needs to be given into the space of the LLM. Your financial account details, your financial details, perhaps your passport numbers if you want a travel agency, an AI travel agent to book things for you. And so that's a level which exists, but perhaps people are as yet reluctant to do it. However, if you think about how the modern world works, I basically already have an everything supermarket, and it's called Amazon. And I buy everything from Amazon. It appears miraculously at my door. I have no issue with logging my financial details on Amazon. I have no issue with doing all sorts of financial transactions via the internet. History has shown that it is safe to do so. And as history will no doubt show, that agency systems are safe or are becoming safe in the actual use cases in reality, which they will begin to have. I think the acceptance of this will be widespread, and that is possibly also where, linking this now up with one of our previous chats about the evaluation of OpenAI, where I would see that some of the valuations may begin to be supported, because if that is a use case, that OpenAI or somebody else will be able to advertise to the public, will be able to manufacture structure as a usable and safe product, then no doubt many people will take that up, and they will be happy to pay a fee for that to OpenAI. So yeah, I think an everything app would be fantastic. I'd be a user if I could get past my current reluctance to give out this kind of financial information and to actually give over a mandate to an outside agent to do something for me, a non-human outside agent. I would be quite happy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Initially, with these things, you're a bit reluctant. You think, well, I don't know, do I want my financial information to be there and all that kind of stuff? But after a while, it works. You think it's okay, and you just get used to it. It becomes the norm, and it's just one of those things, isn't it? When you doubt it initially, but then after a while you think, well, it's okay, I want the functionality. Okay, nothing is perfect, but you kind of want, you kind of want it.
Yeah, exactly.
You kind of get over it. I mean, this is one of the things. I mean, we were talking about in the build up to this was about payments. This is the last thing. So it's one thing for, say, ChatGPT to book you a restaurant, which is still okay. It hasn't cost you anything. It's the next step is could you pay for my weekly, let's say we're going to have these meals as a family next week. Please generate a shopping list and buy it from Sainsbury's. Boom. That is going to take more. I think until at the moment, I think everything in what I've just said is okay until you get to the payment bit, because you sort of want to be the one to press the button and you wouldn't want ChatGPT to do it. I think there's also issues with regard to, there's definitely concerns with regard to data privacy and, your personal data. But I mean, and this is a very, I know this is going to be a bit convoluted and it is just my own theory, that I kind of think, what would happen if you could combine so identity, so maybe biometric data, blockchain, and AI? Because what would happen there is you'd say have biometric data. Maybe you could even throw in, Starmer's ID cards for good measure. So put that in there, but have that on the blockchain, which means that it's supposedly unhackable, and then combine that with AI. So in fact, you could go on AI, you could ask them all this stuff, and actually you would know that in fact your information is safe. And suddenly that gets rid of all the fears and it opens up a whole, without quoting Aladdin, a whole new world, without bursting into song. Because I do want to burst into song because it's a great song. But, you could open a whole new world with that, because suddenly the trust is there. And so you can think, oh, well, in that case, I'll do this and this and this and this and this. I mean, you'd be able to save so much time.
I don't actually think it will take all that much to get there, to be honest with you, because I think in reality what will happen as these products shape up into actual usable products, the reality will be slightly different from the theory that we have just expounded. What we said basically is, wouldn't it be great to have an agent and you just basically ask them, let's say, well, we are okay. We've just been to Morocco on a little holiday, so remembering this, I would ask the agent to say, okay, we want to go to Morocco, we want to go to Marrakesh and some other location close to Marrakesh. We want to pay that much for the hotel, and we want to go within a period of there. Excuse me. Go away, give us a few ideas, and when we select one idea, book it all up and send us a booklet with the documents. Now, that's a theoretical idea. I don't think in practice it will quite work like this. In practice, it will probably work like this. Just what I said now, the AI will give you various dossiers, various scenarios of what you can do. Then you say to the AI, okay, we just basically click on certain modules which you like, and then say book it. At that point, the AI will contact the provider, put the financial link into place, but then check back with you whether you now want to press the button. You press the button and it will then link into the already tried and established ways to book things. So you press the button and you will then book the, let's say, module of the holiday, let's say a car transfer, with the company. But as that happens, your bank here in the UK will ask you to verify the transaction via the app. This is what normally happens when I book anything. It asks me to verify via the app. And you can basically then do that. And so you remain in control of the financial transactions because you are being asked consent and you give the consent. But what you do not have to do is contact each provider of every module of the holiday, in this example, yourself and initiate the transactions. That is going to be done by the AI. So I envisage something like module 1, 2, 3. The link is there. You click the link. Your bank asks you to confirm via the app. That is what you do. That thing is confirmed. Then you move on to the next thing, next module, click, etc., etc. So you still have involvement, but it is an easy involvement. So the financial transaction security is going to be no less than it is already now. It is just the ease with which it is being facilitated that is the value add of the agency system that you are going to use in future.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about that, I just thought, actually, do you know what? This could be a huge business opportunity for OpenAI. I mean, probably I'm slow on the uptake here, but you think if you're OpenAI, literally every retailer there exists would want to be on ChatGPT somehow. There will be, and they will pay. They will pay to be on there. And we've been talking. There's a lot of talk about can OpenAI afford all this, all these deals and stuff that it's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if all, it's in a way, it's almost a bit like house sellers going on Rightmove. Like they'll pay to go on there and they will pay a monthly fee. I can imagine that surely that would be the case with, ChatGPT, because you could have all retailers could be on there. They could put there and you wouldn't need price comparison websites, because if all of the providers are signed up to ChatGPT I'm just taking ChatGPT as an example, but if all the providers were already signed on there, then ChatGPT can do the price comparison. I mean, at the moment, price comparison websites are sort of collecting the data. If ChatGPT collects the data and it's all there and it's connected anyway, what's the point of having a price comparison?
It's a brilliant idea. Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, you could do so many things. I mean, I think maybe things like opinion related ratings, like TripAdvisor, for instance. Although I think TripAdvisor is flawed, because there's no real control. I don't feel there's really that much quality control in there. But for instance, if you connected TripAdvisor into ChatGPT, and what that does is you could feed, like, let's say you're in your recommendation here, where so your situation where you're thinking, I want to go for a meal, decent place, I want it to cost less than 50 quid per head, and somewhere decent, right? So it collates everything. So it does the price comparison. It combines that with the with the TripAdvisor rating. It looks at the maps to sort of decide where it is, and then it comes up with the situation. I mean, this is kind of what you would do as a human. You would be like, okay,
exactly.
well, I'm here now. Okay. I mean, I did this recently, on holiday. I was like looking on there, and rather than I want to go to this restaurant, this is miles away. I think, right, I'm here. I've got 2 kids and my wife here. Where should we go? Just looking on it. Okay. Then looking at the TripAdvisor thing, and AI,
Absolutely.
ChatGPT can do all that straight away, and and it would be a huge money spinner for ChatGPT because
Yeah.
everyone will want to be on there. So
Yeah, as we said when we were talking about the valuation of OpenAI,
Hmm.
I mean, I know from memory that I think the current revenue, this is not earnings, but revenue they're generating is about 13 billion.
Hmm.
And I know that there are about 800 million users. Now, not many of them will pay a fee for that. I
Hmm.
use it occasionally and I don't pay a fee because a lot of it is free. There are only certain models which, if you wish to use them, incur a fee. GPT 5.0 and 4.0 mini and all these kind of specialized things, they incur a fee. But if you now just think that a stepped up use case, a stepped up usability of this in the way which we have just discussed, I would pay a fee for that.
Hmm.
And so all of a sudden, if you take 800 million users, and I'm now inventing a number just to be just to make a point. Let's say it costs 20 quid a month to actually do that. 800 million users, all of a sudden you have 16 billion in revenue.
Mhm.
Currently they're having
Oh,
13.
per month. Per
Yeah,
month.
per month. Well,
That's
if
the
it
thing.
is
That's just
if
per
it's
month.
20 quid per month, is even
Yeah.
better. Or 20
Yeah.
quid a year. Then they've got
Mm.
$16 billion in revenue. That's
Mm.
already more than they're making at the moment. So it is clear and obvious that if somebody has a service to sell that everybody wants, then clearly that particular company that sells the service will make a lot of revenue. But this is the sort of situation in where we're headed, I think. If everybody wants the ability to have an agent doing onerous tasks for them, and that is being offered in a secure, usable, and practical way by somebody, I would pay money for that. And then obviously then you have the normal thing, which always happens. Then Elon Musk is producing his, and Anthropic is anthropic theirs. The competition goes up, the price comes down, etc. Fine. But I think that is absolutely where we're going to be headed. And as you said, the ancillary use cases which hang off it basically are also amazing. Some services will disappear because everything can be done. Well, the everything app, everything can
Mm.
be done from the data that the LLM is collecting either anyway or in the process of that particular operation. And you mentioned blockchain, which is of course also important. You said it's basically unhackable, and this is, I think, true in terms of it's feasibly unhackable. If you remember, guys, we talked about this once. They have a 256 character code, which you would need to sort of effectively guess in order to break the code. But that means that there are 2 to the power of 256 possibility. So the probability for you to get that code, to get it right, with one instant is 1 part in 2 to the 256. Now, is that number a big number? Well, I can tell you that there are 2 to the 80 atoms in the universe. So yes, it's a big number. So it is feasibly unhackable. It doesn't, I mean, there are some technicalities, which I'm not going to go into, but basically any data stored properly on blockchain is safe. And I think that is where we are going to see in future, in the near future, some of these technologies to actually blend into one use case. And so I'm excited. I think this could be very interesting. I'd be certainly interested in using this myself.
I mean, I as a final thing, because we got to talk about the next thing, but I do wonder about, maybe they won't call it a super app, because
No, maybe not.
that would attract the attention of the competition authorities and all the privacy and everything like that.
Mhm.
If they just sort of badged it as look, this is just a more a kind of a chatbot with a bit more functionality, then maybe they will be able to be under the radar longer.
I would call it
I don't
Genie
know. Yeah,
or something.
yeah,
The OpenAI Genie.
yeah.
Isn't it great?
Nice.
I
It
mean,
is.
maybe it's great. Genie is out of the bottle. Maybe that conjures up the wrong associations.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
know what I mean. This sort of thing,
Mm.
or your desk assistant, or something. I mean, but it will certainly, um, you know, catch the attention of the regulatory authorities
Mm.
anyway, whatever you want,
Mm.
whatever you call it. And
Yeah,
these are ongoing things, and we are living in exciting times when it comes to that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure this particular technology will exist but it exists already, but it will exist in a scaled form. Many people are actually using it,
Mm.
just as we are now using Apple Pay. I
Yeah,
use Apple Pay for everything. I mean,
yeah.
like for example, the last anecdote. Possibly, time is hard to estimate. Let me call it 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Apple Pay, to me at least, became first sort of a thing which was beginning to be on my horizon on my phone. And then I used it a few times on my phone, and I found the service, meaning in restaurants, at petrol stations, etc. And I found that so enticing and so irresistibly useful that I started not taking my credit cards around anymore.
Yeah.
And at that time, that was still a little bit dangerous because not everybody recognized this. Now, I can tell you, I haven't seen cash in probably 10 years. I haven't seen my cards in possibly a few years. I mean, I sometimes still need to use them, but
Mm.
very, very rarely.
Mm.
Using a card now, to me, feels backward.
Mm.
Everything
Mind
is
you,
on my phone.
mind you, you know what? I still do though, just to make sure that I remind myself that I don't forget the pin number. So that's I do sometimes do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to another thing of the future. This week we saw that Waymo is looking at bringing driverless taxis to London, and recently we saw that Wayve, which is a British company, along with Uber, is going to be bringing or testing taxis in driverless taxis in London. So the question is, do you think it's going to work in London?
I was just smiling because the name of, sorry, I'm just going to say it. It's going to be NAF. I apologize. Let me hear you say Waymo.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
God, I'm so funny. Guys, you would not want to be in my head. My head is a strange place of
So what you say
mostly
boom boom
juvenile
boom
connections.
boom boom boom. What do you want to say, Waymo?
Exactly.
Go on.
Oh,
Boom,
Waymo.
boom, boom. You've got to say Waymo.
Waymo.
There you go. Anyway, right. Okay, good.
Sorry,
I'm glad.
what was the
I'm glad.
question?
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
What was the question? No,
So
I
do you?
remember the question.
Yeah.
Serious. Right, fine. Back to serious mode. Serious Ralph LLM mode. Will driverless cars, driverless cabs work in London? Yeah, this is this
Sorry.
actually.
What are you rubbing there? I mean,
Oh, sorry. This is just
from this
my
angle,
desk.
it looks quite. Oh, right, your desk. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What else might I
Well,
be
I
rubbing?
have no idea. I can't see below your sort of chest height,
No,
so
it's a good thing.
I don't know. Again, okay.
Anyway,
So anyway, yeah. Carry on.
moving
Carry
on.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yes. Okay, there's a few aspects to this. I mean, the first one is that anybody who drives a car physically in London or through London should have their head examined because you can't drive anywhere in London anymore. I mean, 20 years ago, I could still drive into the West End, and there was an enjoyable experience. It was fun. It was just a global city. clearly traffic was dense, but it was still possible to have a nice drive through London, down the Mall, Buckingham Palace, beautiful, absolutely wonderful. But you can't do that anymore. I mean, there's lots of construction projects going on in London. There's the super sewer and some others. There's the ongoing thing to replace the Victorian water pipes, which are leaking all over the place. And so basically everywhere in London you encounter the construction site, which is slowing things down. The other thing which you encounter is narrower roads, because part of them are given over to the, I think it's called the cycle superhighway, which is a good thing in itself because it encourages cycling more, etc. And that's fine. But traffic in London has become it's more like a dense soup, but you can't. It moves very, very slowly. This is in particular interesting because London is one of the cities which have, I think, the best public transport system in the world. I mean, the London Underground is absolutely marvelous. And you can see I probably have a sideline working for the London Tourist Office or something. But I do find the tube, yes, sure, rush hour is unpleasant and it breaks down and there are delays, sure, but it is still an absolutely marvelous public transport system if you live in a global city. It's not the only one. Paris has a good one, and Tokyo, I think, is a very good one, etc. Sure. But what I'm saying is that this is competing use. I mean, if you want to get anywhere in London, you will use the tube. You not necessarily jump into a cab. If, however, you need to use a cab, then, well, there's another thing. Would I choose an autonomous car which will stick slavishly to the traffic code and safety protocols over a black cabbie who can weave in and out of traffic and usually does and knows all the shortcuts, which perhaps an autonomous car working off Google Maps doesn't know. But by shortcuts, I mean things like you enter a public car park because you know that at the exit of the car park exits out onto a side street, which you could otherwise not reach from the street you're in. I mean, this is completely common for cabbies to do in London. And so I still would say yes. With some confidence. I'm just elucidating a little bit the practicalities of London and living in London and driving in London. So given that there is clearly a demand for car-based transport in London, I would say that autonomously driven cars will be probably a success if they can prove themselves to be a viable alternative to either Uber or cabbies. But if you think back to the time that there were only London cabbies and Uber came in, that was seen as a terrible thing. I mean, basically, complete disruption to the industry, which it was, but people were bemoaning the untimely death of black cabbies a little bit too early because black cabbies are still there. However, I think there are now 14,000 black cabs in London, and last year there were 24,000. So the number of black cabs is clearly dwindling as the competing services of Uber have come in, and that will happen again when autonomous cars come in. But in and of itself, I would believe that they will be a success. Why would they not be? It will depend on the price, of course, but if they are autonomously driven and you can basically pick them up, they're sort of roaming around in the street and you can in town, and you can just pick them up wherever you are. I think would be a viable alternative. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there will be, they could be a very interesting alternative. I also think, though, that it's a case of it's not just about London. I think that if the big point of it, well, one of the major points of this is if they can work well in London, that means they will be fine everywhere else. and and that is actually, I think, the bigger point in a way, because that means that suddenly, in theory, taxis could be an extremely efficient way of getting around, because in theory the fuel costs will be, the costs will be lower. You're not having to pay a driver. So actually could be a very, a very quick way, a very sort of price efficient way of getting around. So that's one thing. I think that I would imagine, but I don't know, but I would imagine that one of the reasons, one of the reasons why the number of cabbies has gone down is probably because I would imagine that there aren't that many younger ones coming in, because, if you're coming in now, do you think that your job is going to be there in 10 years' time? I
Yeah.
would argue maybe not. But then again, we've seen this before when so with Uber coming in and these cars using Google Maps and stuff, they don't know all the ins and outs of London. They don't do the knowledge like the black
Exactly.
cabbies do. But they are cheaper. And so I think at that point, a lot of black cabbies were asked, do you think that these navigation systems, is that going to be the end of the black cabbie? And it hasn't been. So this could be another one of those, but I do feel that the pressure is on. If you're a young person and you're thinking about doing it, you're probably going to think, well, actually, I don't know if I do want to do this, because it's not going to be around for that much longer. Is it worth doing the knowledge, which
Exactly.
takes roughly 2 years to do, and it costs a lot of money, time, and exams? Why put yourself through it when you can get in a cab now? And I don't know, it just seems a bit sort of redundant, really.
Yeah.
So, and then the other sort of thing I was talking about with Ralph earlier is my Dragon's Den idea, is that you could have, if you have a driverless a taxi, you could have options, like you'd have buttons, right? You could have like music, like you press option for music. You could maybe you could have maybe a like a tourist guide type option as well. So as you're driving along, it will tell you interesting things about about buildings
That's
and
good.
that kind of stuff. Or you can have a black cabbie option, and to give you sort of general banter, talk about, and whether or not would these options be automated. You could have, some of them could be automated, but maybe you could choose to speak to a human. You can have this interaction options, and employ real people to have a bit of banter, as you would with a normal cab driver. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm not sure about. You wouldn't actually employ real people. I mean, the point is to get rid of real people. I mean, that's the AI revolution. Basically, we're all gonna be out of
No, I mean,
jobs.
like like apparently, like a phone in chat
Oh, you mean
thing,
all right? Oh,
where
okay, okay,
they're,
okay.
let's say they're like doing the ironing whilst talking about various activities. You could have like people doing a job. They'd be, I don't know, walking the dog in the park, and suddenly they get this sort of notification like, so and so in cab 936 wants to talk to you. So you go, yeah, I'll take it. And then you start talking about football results or something. And you can have a bit of banter. They rate you, and then you could earn some money from it.
I
I mean,
love
I think
that.
that'd be quite a fun idea for a job.
I do a
Um,
sideline
yeah,
on that. If
yeah.
anybody wants banter with a German accent, I'm there. I'm
I
there.
was going to say that's pretty niche. It's pretty niche, but I'm
Hey,
sure it can serve
big
all
fish in a
niches.
very small pond.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm actually the only fish in this pond. Anyway, no, but what I wonder is whether autonomous cars in cities such as London or Paris, or actually, to be honest with you, in any kind of moderate
Mm,
big city,
mm,
would not kind of require a rebuild of the roads to some extent. And I really just wonder, because I don't know. an autonomous. This was sort of the background of my point earlier. Anybody who's ever driven in London knows that you don't get any. Well, but nowadays you don't get anywhere, whatever you do. But 10, 15 years ago, when I drove in London, it was constant weaving in and out, left and right, this, that, and the other, and everybody did that. It was fantastic. It was like Brownian motion, basically, and that's kind of what you need to do. And an autonomous car would not do that. I wouldn't want an autonomous car to do that. An autonomous car want to stick to the traffic code and not weave in and out of traffic. That's a terrible idea.
All the journeys would take longer, which is where my idea comes in, right? Banter, like you want to speak to the Archbishop of Banterbury, right? I mean, in terms of who wouldn't want to have a bit of banter while they are,
to while away the time, yes, but you don't want time to be whiled away. You want to be efficient in your journey time. And so I wonder whether, just like we have in London now the bicycle superhighway, which is a specific bike lane separated and protected from the road, we would have autonomous car lanes. I know this is not going to be practical, which is why I'm hesitating now. You can't really rebuild cities in this way, but I do wonder whether the trend, the sort of mega trend over the next, let's say, 100 years, to pick a number, is not going to be away from the private ownership model, so people don't have their own car anymore so much, towards an autonomous driving model, where you just basically, if you in a big city such as London, there's a constant flow of autonomous cars. You jump in, it gets you to your destination, a bit like an overground tube system, just more versatile in terms of where it is, where the car is able to go, and for that, I think gradually perhaps cities will change their topography and they will change what they look like. But that's of course pie in the sky, and for the next 100 years, I think take up of that will be slow, for precisely the reason that I articulated, that it may be harder for autonomous cars to drive in a very highly unstructured environment such as London, Paris, New York, places like that. Maybe you need a more structured environment for these services to catch on, perhaps something like more countryside locations where basically you have country roads on which you go. But now I'm really talking about things I don't understand. This is just a balloon, basically. I don't know. It's just because I live in London, I've lived here for a very long time. I know how this city works, and I know the pulse of it, and it is still very highly unstructured. It's not unstructured as such. It's not dangerous, but it is a constant flow. People are individually responsible to where they go, and that is where they will go, and everything works. People are less rules driven in London than there, for example, are in my other country, in Germany. People would be very highly rules driven, and they're not operate outside of the rules. Actually, that is, I think, what I was thinking. Maybe these things would work better in a German city, where where people are more sort of inclined to follow the rules, than in London, where it is less rules driven. I mean,
I think that's a very interesting point. Because I also, what you said there reminds me of what was happening in San Francisco, for instance, with, I think, Waymo and stuff. Is that what happened was that with human car drivers bullying the autonomous vehicles. So the autonomous vehicles, very obvious, you can see that they have autonomous vehicles. So, for instance, at T junctions and stuff like that, no one was letting them in. and there was all this kind of stuff as well. Now, maybe we've got past that, or there's ways around it. I don't know, but it's just, what you said there about the driver's behaviour behind the wheel is different. I mean, I know, for instance, when I drive in the very rare occasions I have to drive in London, because I used to live there a long time ago, is that I feel I have two driving modes. I have London driving mode, and then I have everywhere else driving mode. And London driving mode is basically push in, stick your nose out, get in there, because no one is going to let you in ever. So it doesn't matter what you drive. So I think that that's certainly that's certainly something to remember. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of it. I wonder also, are these cars going to need to be as big? Do they need to be that big? And will that mean that there's going to be less traffic? Is it going to flow better?
Exactly.
All that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
I don't know.
That's another thing. That's kind of almost like the next step of this technology. Are autonomous cars going to be somehow centrally steered and centrally operated? So to optimize traffic flow, then indeed it would be a contribution towards the organization of traffic flow in big cities, and it would maybe reduce congestion. And one last point. In London specifically, you have certain iconic characteristics which everybody associates with London: red buses and black cabs. But that wouldn't be a problem. If autonomous cars catch on, you just make them look like black cabs, and that's it. And you have preserved that particular iconic item, which makes London not what it is, but which many people associate with London. It's an identity marker.
Yeah.
However, also these identity markers, they're not indispensable. Red telephone boxes.
I was just going to say that
were an identity marker. They all disappeared with mobiles, but that doesn't mean that London is any less iconic. And so it's just a marginal thing anyway. I just wanted to mention this.
Yeah,
I don't think that would be an issue necessarily.
Yeah.
I think all Uber cars, however, should be black cabbed somehow as a Londoner. Well, wasn't born here, but there we are.
No, fair enough. So anyway, I mean, I think some interesting topics covered today. We didn't mention Trump once. Oh, it's amazing.
Not at all. Until you got oh my God, you blew it.
So we didn't mention him at all.
No way.
That was a real win.
We did.
But anyway, interesting stuff. I know that we're talking about things in the future, but it's important, because if those things do happen, that is going to have impact on lots of different professions, on different businesses, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of good stuff. So anyway,
indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Ralph. Really interesting chat today, as always. It was great. Thank you everyone for listening and watching and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, thank you very much indeed. We will be back again very soon.
Indeed. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.